Hello everyone, I'm here with the tutorial series on fundamental analysis for forex traders. So let's see what topic we have today. So today we are going to discuss GDP. What is GDP? Gross Domestic Product. So what is GDP? GDP, it is a leading indicator of a country's economy. The monetary or the market value of the finished goods and services produced within a country's borders in a specific time period. This is what we label as GDP or gross domestic product. The GDP is calculated on a yearly basis as well as on a quarterly basis. The quarterly analysis shows whether the economy is expanding, producing more goods and services, or contracting, decreasing output. So at a quarterly analysis, it also shows that where the economy is heading, whether it is expanding or whether it is heading towards recession. And then it also gives an analysis of how one country's economy is performing against another country or countries. So GDP is a yardstick where you can compare one country with another country or other countries, that how one country is performing. And a country's GDP takes into account all of the private and public spending and output, investment and net exports. And what is exports? Net exports is total exports minus total imports. So any country's total exports, and if you minus total imports out of it, you get net exports. Okay, so what is GDP? This is a picture courtesy of Investopedia from their website. This is a very good depiction of what a GDP is. It's a map of the US and the total monetary or the market value of all the finished goods and services produced within a country's borders in a specific time period. This is called GDP. So we can see on the map, within that boundaries of that map, whatever is produced within a specific period of time, we call it as a GDP, gross domestic product. So then we have two types of GDPs. First is nominal GDP. Nominal GDP is the assessment of economic production that only includes current prices in its calculation. So in nominal GDP, we only include current prices in its calculation. It does not include inflation factor in the prices. So in nominal GDP, we do not include inflation factor. Nominal GDP is evaluated in either the local currency or the US dollars. And when comparing the GDP of 2 or more years, real GDP is used. And this is because, in effect, the removal of the influence of inflation allows the comparison of the different years to focus solely on volume. Now, what is real GDP? Real GDP is an anti-inflation real GDP is an inflation-adjusted measure that reflects the number of goods or services produced by an economy in a given year. Since GDP is based on the monetary value of goods and services, it is subject to inflation. So in real GDP as compared to nominal GDP, we consider inflation in its calculation. That is what is called real GDP. Though real GDP has its limitation, GDP is a key tool to guide policymakers, investors, and businesses in strategic decision making. So when we discuss a GDP, domestic GDP, then we have this word domestic in gross domestic product. So what does that mean? It indicates that the inclusion criteria is geographical. That is, goods and services counted are those produced within the country's border, regardless of the nationality of the producer. So that's why I call it domestic to that area, right? Okay, now we also see gross in domestic product. So what does gross means in the gross domestic product? It indicates that products are counted regardless of their subsequent use. What does that mean? It means that a product can be used for consumption, for investment, or to replace an asset. In all cases, the product's final sales receipt will be added to the total GDP figure. So that's what is called gross domestic product. And then we have GDP. We also hear some terms like GNP, gross national product. What it means, gross national product measures the total monetary value of goods and services produced by the native to the country, whether they live in the country or out of the country. So this is the goods and services produced by the native of that country, whether they live in that country or they do not live in that country. It excludes the goods and services produced domestically by foreign producers. So if you're living in any country and there are people who have come from abroad and they are producing some goods and services, so those will not be counted in the gross national product. And then we have GNI, gross national income. It calculates the total income of citizens and businesses of a country, whether they are living in the country or out of the country. This number includes GDP plus the net foreign factor income. And net foreign factor income, the income an economy receives from foreign resources. So GNI being proved a better indicator than GDP for overall economic health, as some of the countries have most of their income withdrawn abroad by foreign corporations and individuals. So what is the importance of GDP? Why GDP is important? GDP is important measurement of a country's economic growth, health, and size, and influences the direction of the financial market. That's why it's important. And the pace at which our economy is growing affects business conditions and investment decisions, as well as whether workers can find jobs. So all these indicators are driven from GDP, whether GDP is good or bad, it is performing better or it's performing worse. And when GDP is rising, the economy is typically deemed to be doing very well. Employment can be expected to increase as companies hire more people, which means that people have more money to spend. And this then generates more business and keeps the cycle going. And when GDP is shrinking, the opposite occurs. Businesses cut back on production and expansion, and workers are laid off. So this is how GDP is important. If the economy is performing good, GDP is good, and then the subsequent indicators are also good. And if the economy is not performing, it's shrinking, then GDP is negative or on the negative side, and then all those other subsequent indicators also show negative. So this is a picture where you can see the GDP of different countries. You can see United States of America is the biggest one, is leading, and then China, Japan, Germany, and other countries. So that's about it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye bye.